Hey my Valetzas! At the end of this video I have something really important to share with you, but for now we're going to talk about letting go, surrender, control, and all of that. Alright, let's get going. Letting go, forgiving, and moving on all feel so hard because it's all really a part of releasing control. And control is something that we do as a coping strategy to feel more secure. When we feel secure, we have a false sense of peace. So a lot of times if you're feeling like you want to work on your relationship or work on your weight or work on this or work on that, and I've been there, all of the above, it's really a sense of needing to control. So when someone says, I need to lose weight, and they're actively in a diet, they're trying to control their weight. If you say that you're trying to make your relationship work, there's aspects of control happening there. Now, some control is okay, but it's only good if, for instance, in a relationship, if both people are emotionally invested in working on the relationship. If it's just you trying to convince the other person to make it work, it's not going to be as fantastic, right? Now, there's one caveat I want to mention here. You can work on your relationship if it's just you working with a therapist or just you working with some self-help on changing you and your responses. So as long as you're working on yourself and your responses and your perceptions of the relationship can start to change and improve because you're working on yourself. And it only takes one person to work on themselves in the relationship to have a domino effect on the other person. Because everything that you do, every response that you have is going to create another response in the other person. So if you're doing X all of the time and all of a sudden you do Y, you're going to get a different response usually. What I'm talking about here is when you're trying to control what the other person does and control their response, which is a totally different thing. Just like that other person can't control you. They can't make you do different things and you feel good about it. You're going to feel resentful. So when you're in a relationship and you're trying to control that relationship, if you're trying to fix the relationship, if you're trying to fix the other person, help the other person, even if they didn't ask for it, or give advice that's totally unsolicited, you're going to cause resentment in the other person. It's going to build a wall. And sometimes what we call an emotionally distant man is actually a man who is sitting there with all these walls up because he has been feeling like he's being controlled over and over again. And I'm not saying that you should just say like, okay, forget it, he could do whatever he wants. No. I'm saying that focus on yourself. And in that focus on yourself, I don't want you to beat yourself up. I don't want you to try to be someone you're not. Whatever your weight is right now, be happy in your own skin. Of course, there's always room for improvement, usually. So if it's your weight and you need to lose 10, 15, 80 pounds, still be happy in your skin, but just focus gently on getting to a goal. But don't hyper-control. Hyper-control leads to failure. Hyper-control always leads to failure in almost anything that you're doing. So a hyper-controlled diet is bound to fail. Hyper-controlled working out, bound to fail eventually, or bound to have an injury. Even people who are Olympians, who have focused all of their life on a certain sport, eventually have aches, pains, or injuries because they've controlled so much that their body can't handle it anymore. The person who is very controlling in their work and is hyper successful might have some relationship failures. Maybe they're not around their children enough. There's always something that's sacrificed when there's hyper control. As a woman, if you're really in touch with your feminine energy, with your hormones, no matter where you are in the transitions of being a woman, you're always going to feel like there's more empathy, more intuition, and more connection to the other person, which can lead to the feeling of knowing what's best for them. Now that's a very dangerous thing because you really don't know what's best for someone else usually. You might know what you want as best for them, but it's whatever they want. Now, of course, in a relationship, you might be able to see different facets that the other person can't see because they're inside of themselves, but they can do the same thing with you. So the best way to approach that is to approach it with an air of surrender and vulnerability. So if you see something in your partner that you feel like is really a red flag, bring it up to them gently in a way that is non-threatening, in a way that doesn't create them to want to put a wall up. You will always get way more out of your relationship if you can address whatever you're observing or whatever your situation is, if you can stay in a place of compassion, of vulnerability, and of accepting whatever it is that they're going to express to you. So you can't really address something knowing in your mind the answer that you want and expecting it. And I'm not saying that you don't have an expectation. I'm saying that you can't in that expectation, assume that they're going to give it to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So for instance, if I see my husband eating a gallon of ice cream, I might say to him, hey, that's not a good idea. And the expectation in my head is, gosh, I hope he stops doing that. Because number one, it's not good for him. And number two, save me some. But I can't assume that he's going to say, oh, you think I'm eating too much ice cream? Let me just put the spoon down. I have to accept that I'm saying something, but I'm going to just let him be in charge of his own life. I can't mother him. And a lot of women do that to their spouses because they have all of this empathy, they have all of this intuition, and they have this capacity to be a mother. And women, whether you're a mother or not, have this ability to mother, whether it's your business, a husband, your children. You have the ability and you often exude that caretaking. If you don't have any children and you have a business, I guarantee you there's parts of your business that you're mothering. I see it all of the time. And that's okay. But there comes a time where not everybody's an infant. Your business isn't always in an infant stage. Sometimes you have to hire other people, and sometimes you just have to trust that they know what they're doing. You can't micromanage them. You can't micromanage your husband. You can't micromanage your partner. You just can't do that. It's going to create walls, whether it's in your business or your relationship. So the art of letting go and forgiving and moving on is not about releasing control in a way that is threatening. It's about releasing control so that you can focus on the fluid life that you have. Because life isn't rigid. It's not an iron. It's more like an ocean. It's more like the wind. Very fluid, very movement focused, very flowing. And the more you stay in a space of not flowing and not being fluid in yourself and in your mindset, the more you're going to feel anxiety and depression, and the more you're going to be afraid to take your own chances, and the more you're going to be afraid to take your own risks and step out of your box. Because as you're controlling your work or your husband or your children or anything in your life, even your diet, your weight, you're going to feel more and more boxed in, more and more unhappy.
Ladies, I told you in the beginning that I had a special gift for you. I have just launched the Sanity Soiree, which is a free online monthly workshop. So you sign up, it gets delivered to your email, it's a journaling workshop, and pretty much what we do is journaling and a lot of different creativity, all for the purpose of the healing process. So I hope you join us. All of the information is right below.
And I have another video.